I'm going to ask all our speakers to come up, please. We are going to do a little bit of a panel discussion, like 10-15 minutes. Because, yeah, we're at the beginning of the year, 2023, lots is going to happen this year. Google's going to keep on making updates. And I'd like us to have a bit of a conversation. I had a really great conversation this morning with our sponsor, James. And, it just got me thinking about automation and our fear of it sometimes. And, I work for Mirror Software. We're amazing at what we do. If I do say so myself, I don't have to say that, but I do say so. And, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. And, I'd really like us to get into the idea of what the fear is, what is the worry about. I think for me, for a lot of in the community, it's the control. But is that control going to go away completely? Is that an okay thing? A lot of people, especially in the community, we talk about how we don't want to be working on bids anymore. We do want to look at the more interesting stuff, the strategy, the long-term strategy. Azeem has helped us to have conversations with our clients about why paid search is important, and that's what really the conversations, that's the work we want to be doing. So I'd like everyone from the panel as well to I'd like to ask the question, what do you think about automation, and what do you feel our biggest fear is, and do you think it's a valid thing?
Ladies first.
I'll go first so that hopefully you don't say what I'm going to say. So, I'm all for automation. I'm all down for cutting down things that you don't need to do. My problem with it is that I hope if you are an agency or you have clients, is that you are not just using that free time to book in more clients. I hope that people use that time that they're freeing up to add value to their clients. That is where my concern comes in with automation, is that, yes, it will free up your time, but what are you doing with it? Unfortunately, I've come across agencies before which think, oh, that's great, we can charge them 5 hours, but we're only doing 3 hours, great, that's 2 hours. To me, obviously, we can get away with it, but I think it becomes a moral thing of what are you going to do with that time? So that is my main thing with it. Free up time, that's great, but what are you going to do with it? Are you still adding value to your client? Because at the end of the day, if you're just putting everything through automation, then maybe one day your client could just do it for themselves and they don't need you at all. So that is my stance, and I will die on it.
I'm a big fan of automation, and I think because of when I started at that in-between phase. Like I learned manual bidding, but like automation was already being introduced. So I think because I was like at the in-between one, I am a little bit more for automation than a lot of people that have been in it for a long time. One thing I will say is you can't rely solely on automation though. Again, another talk that I went to, one thing that I heard and is always stuck in my head, automation is better than it was, but not as good as it could be. So, that really stuck in my head. So there are ways that you can work with the machine. I think the most important thing as a PPC, we all probably, how many people have heard, PPC managers are not going to be needed? I think we've all heard that at one point, but that's not true. There are certain things that machines are not going to understand. Like I say this, and some people disagree with me. Humans are weird. We're very weird. We have different human behaviors, and a machine, as clever as it's going to be, it's never going to be able to understand people because it doesn't have emotions, and we are ruled by emotions, and only people can understand people. So the one thing that we need to learn is not go against the machines, not rely on the machines, but how can we work with the machines to get the most out of paid.
Oh, I don't know what to answer that. To be fair, 2 brilliant points. I think the only the only thing that I would probably add to that is I don't really see automation as a threat yet, because I think, speaking purely from my own experience, a lot of automation lacks context. So without boring you all to death, until automation has context and has that understanding of why it's making such a decision, then maybe our jobs might be under threat. But at the end of the day, the only way that context comes is from us, is from everybody sitting in this room, humans. Automation will only ever be as good as the input that it gets. Until there are quality inputs, and that comes from us in this room, then automation will possibly become a threat, and we'll have to potentially rethink about how we do our jobs. I'm absolutely not saying that none of us are very good in this room because we can't give automation quality inputs just yet, but I think a lot of people fear what they don't understand, me included. And I think the big thing to take away is that context. Automation doesn't know why it's increasing a bid at a certain time of day or on a certain day of the year. Until automation has that understanding and can do it without the input of us, then I think it will be a threat.
And even though I know like some of you might not have actually used Performance Max, I'd like your opinions on Performance Max, if you don't mind, please. Who should I start with? Sure.
I've used Performance Max quite a lot for e-commerce because, I mean, let's be honest, we have no choice. Smart shopping's gone and manual shopping barely gets any traction. So a bit is good for e-commerce because of the fact that, you know, you're not getting fake leads through, you're getting like the shopping. However, there was at one point this year where I kind of became a mini celebrity because all I did was put out a tweet that said, why are we getting so many fake leads from Performance Max to Ginny Marvin, and oh my god, did it go crazy. It even became like a joke in my team because we're getting so many fake leads for lead gen, so I do not use it for lead gen at all. Some people on my team do. Some of the workarounds we've come across is making sure that you have an integration between Google Ads and the CRM and bringing in a G-Click. That's one good way of getting around it. A lot of my lead gen clients, they don't have CRMs, which is why I don't use it. And for e-commerce, it's difficult. It is. You need to make sure you have the right audiences. So they're like my top tips for using Performance Max. Also, customer match audiences. I've not used them because unfortunately my clients don't seem to understand, are you GDPR compliant? But I know people in the team have used a lot of like the customer match lists and they swear by it. I have used it on paid social though.
I have not touched it. I will not touch it until I am ready to touch it, okay? I'm not feeling the I'll be honest, I am feeling the pressure. I feel like I'm judged because I'm not using it yet. But as a B2B lead gen, it's not there for me yet. I'm seeing the, you know, all these changes coming out and I'm thinking, yeah, that's great, that's great. But for me personally and my clients who there's no wiggle room with them at all, I need to wait until it's going to do what I need it to do. I am very jealous of people who have work on e-com and can actually test it a lot more, but I'm not saying never. As I said in my post the other day, I actually want to use it, but I'm also comfortable and confident to hold back and wait until it's ready for me. So slow and steady wins the race. Yeah.
For me, very, very similar to Sophie. I think my own experience of it is, at the moment, I'm very much indifferent towards it. So, like I said, B2B, industrial manufacturing, it helps the better selling products continue to sell. Marginal difference, not enough for us to say, right, let's go all in. Even splitting them out, the difference is marginal. But where I see, for example, online on Twitter, and if you're not already, if you follow the hashtag ppc chat, it's a great community that people are always sharing stuff on there. A lot of the noise is more negative than positive, but speaking of my own experience, very, very much largely indifferent towards it. The good products continue to sell, the average ones. So.
Does anyone have any? Oh, of course you do. You don't need a mic, go on.
Thanks very much. I definitely want to challenge you guys a bit with this one. If 10 years ago, the two main things we did were adjust bids manually and tell clients what the hell impression share meant, what are the two things we do now or in 5 years? Actually, let's go 5 years. What are the two main things we do in 5 years? And if you say the word strategy, you need to say what you mean by that.
There we go.
10 years ago, I was still at uni. 9 years ago, I was doing manual. Even now, my job is less about the PPC and that click and what's going on at that moment, and more about the after the click, the post click, the, again, lead gen, the lead to sales side of it. my clients, I've noticed now, I could tell you've got 300 conversions. Nowadays, they're like, that's great, but actually I want to know lead to sale rate. Like even the clients are getting more about what's happening afterwards. It's not necessarily for me anymore about getting the volume, it's the quality. So I think, I mean, maybe my clients will use PPC less in the future. They'll spend less, they'll get less clicks, less impressions, that's great. But I think it's moving for me more towards quality and the strategy of the quality. But yeah, that's what I want more. I don't want my clients spending loads of money. If they can spend less money and get better leads, then that's where I'd like it to go.
I'm just going to say 3 words. Conversion rate optimization. You've all probably heard it, right? Google used to always say to us, right, it's about getting the right message in front of the right people at the right time. That was the mantra we've always been given. But with automation, that's becoming more and more hard because we don't have the control that we used to. If we can't control who goes onto our site, what we can do is we can control the actions taken on our site. So if any of you have not been looking into conversion rate optimization, I suggest you do. It's a massive thing. You know, if you can increase your conversion rate even by 1%, right, that would make a whole lot of difference.
2 solid answers there. For me, quite a subjective one. Hopefully you agree. If you don't, tough. I think already we're starting to do some of what I'm about to say, as in moving away from keywords. I think it won't be long before keywords are gone completely in PPC. I read something on LinkedIn, I think it was either this morning or yesterday. It's past my bedtime, so I don't know. Where somebody had done a test with thousands and thousands of keywords on exact match and found it was something like, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I mean. It went viral on LinkedIn. 81% of the time, the match wasn't exactly matching to the keyword. And I think that's an indication of where things are going. Somebody can test that at a large scale. You are telling Google Ads, match exactly this. That is not happening. As a performance marketer, you then have to go back to your team or your client and say, look, you wanted this, you wanted yellow tent, actually blue tent, for example. That's where I think it's going. I'm not going to use the S word that you mentioned, but I genuinely think the context that I mentioned in the last question is going to be massively, massively important. So in the next 5 years, what we're doing now and what we were doing 5 years ago is talking about the decisions that we're making. This month, I will focus on getting 10% more sales of yellow tents. In the next 5 years, what I should be doing is telling you why I want to get you X amount more percentage of sales of yellow tents, and that's where I think the good marketers will separate them. Sorry, the better marketers will separate themselves from the good ones because they'll be able to contextualize these decisions in a strategic way.
Any other questions? Automation? And I will leave it on that note. Thank you very much to all our speakers. Thank you to everyone. Pizza is here. We'll be bringing it out now. First event is done. Please talk all about it, tweet about it, follow on LinkedIn, share your experience, and hopefully see you in a couple of months. I'll put up the details. We are going to do a PPC Live UK celebrates Women's History Month in March, and it's going to be a full female line-up, and some incredible speakers are going to be coming up, and I can't wait to share that with you. So thank you very much.